my school certificate that taught myself programming. If I could go back, I would probably have left months earlier and learned a different type of programming. Despite this, I highly value a strong public education system. I feel incredibly privileged to be able to speak to university classes. I think education is critical in society, but I'm not going to pander to you by saying I deeply regret my history. I am known for honesty. When it comes to education, I do believe that I can suggest improvements. Inclusive education means more than just including people, it means making them feel equal. You don't do that by making them take subjects that the mainstream kids do not do, like spelling in high school. That annoyed me to no end. I felt incredibly patronized. Ironically, I now use word prediction. I've programmed my own word prediction software actually. In school we learn a lot of stuff we don't necessarily use, but as I understand it, the point of this is to spark interest. However, vital information could be missing. For example, I was taught how to cook, but was not told that some people like to target people with disabilities specifically, to use and abuse them. That information could have been useful. There might be other things that would be good to teach about life with a disability, such as your rights in regards to being denied access to places. Of course, don't force the information onto people, but the option would be good. Of course, there may be things people with disabilities can't do, or places they can't go. A school should choose accessible places to go for every student. When this is not possible, I have two suggestions. First, suggest to the place how to best improve accessibility. You can do a lot of good for others this way. Second, see if a virtual reality experience could accomplish the same thing. Obviously, the equipment, in order to make this happen, could be shared by different classrooms. Your school could very well find other uses for it. Some people think disability units promote segregation, and I think they have a point. However, perhaps they're necessary. Ultimately, I lean on the side of more integration is better. Although it is possible that people with disabilities are just more likely to talk to others with disabilities. Before I had this computer, I used to go to clubs and hardly anybody would talk to me. Creating a habit of segregation is not helpful. Perhaps integration, when beneficial, is a good rule. There's other segregation issues, such as having lunch away from everybody else and having to go in taxis instead of walking to school. I even went to a non-local school, so maybe that took away some additional social experiences. Going to a different school was my choice. I think that I favored equipment and technology more than anything else. Perhaps more remote support would be a good thing to make people feel like everybody else. I'm aware habits are formed earlier on, so if you get people into a habit of doing things differently, that could continue throughout their life. So it is worthwhile to integrate them as much as possible from an early age. It is not helpful to patronize the student. A person in a wheelchair should be more than a smile in a class to light up everybody's day. People need to feel that they are equal. You don't do this by patronizing them. You also should make sure that they are reaching their full potential. Some people don't want to use communication devices, and this makes it difficult to know what they are capable of. All you can do is find a way to inspire the child. This should be done from an early age. Communication could be a big problem, especially for people who cannot talk like myself. No, I'm not using this computer because I can't be bothered talking. I have said in other speeches that I find people mainly talk amongst themselves. When they're around me, they either don't know how to communicate or just can't be bothered. Oddly enough, this wasn't my experience at school. I think that you need to prepare people for either circumstance, but this could be difficult. The difference in social interactions is something that I have never thought about before, but could be explained by a more quantity of time being spent with the person. It's strangers that have trouble communicating with me. I am a believer that you should introduce people with disabilities to others at an early age. The question is how you do this. Many people don't like bringing in a person with disabilities just to inspire others. That approach has been criticized by people such as the late Stella Young, and while I don't agree with everything, that she has to say on the subject. It would make sense that, if you bring out the disability community constantly to inspire people, that would be what they expect. So what is a better way to educate people? I don't have all the answers, but learning about the disabilities themselves could be a better way, plus obviously mainstreaming those who have disabilities. If you have other suggestions, let me know. I don't believe enough information is given to be able to establish a career. Perhaps career advisors might be worthwhile. The education system doesn't teach people how to compile a CV or do a job interview. These are skills people need to compete in the workforce. I believe that people with disabilities in particular are better off being entrepreneurs. They can't get a job at fast food restaurants, so they are forced to be creative. Actually, Wendy's is heavily investing in automation, so pretty soon nobody will be able to get a job at a fast food restaurant. Physical labor is going away, bye-bye. The education system needs to adapt to the new economy. This means teaching people how to compete in the job market. Also, when possible, people should learn programming as it allows you to not only to work for other people, but to also create your own products. I personally have created accessibility software, shopping cart backends, software for tourist attractions, and a bunch of other stuff. My problem is I tend to move on to new projects without marketing anything, but I will get employees very soon, so that will solve that problem. The new economy has advantages and disadvantages for people with disabilities. On the one hand, it is easier to do jobs on computers. On the other hand, there will be much more competition for such jobs in the future. The other option is becoming an artist. Arts should have a strong presence in the education system. Those who have true passion for something should be able to explore it. True to my project hopping, 2 years ago I became a comedian. There's also music, theatre, and dance that are viable career options. These should be an option in the education system. It is interesting. I have been a programmer for 16 years, but people mainly refer to me as a comedian. That is kind of annoying, to be honest. From an early age I grew up with technology. That is due to the education system. If I was born 50 years earlier, I would have been stuck in a home. Instead, through the use of technology, I'm able to talk to you today. By the way, I invented a software that I'm using to speak to you right now. Not a big deal. Actually, comedy pushed me to create this solution as I had no way of pausing. Creating software is only slightly different from website backends. I would have done this much sooner if I had known it wasn't that difficult. Why did they force me to do patronizing spelling lessons in high school? They should have just taught me how to create software, although they normally don't teach programming at such an age, but maybe they should have recognized my potential. I was practically obsessed with computers, but I never knew that I could do such a thing until I was desperate for a solution for comedy sets. They say a core function of schooling is to prompt interest. It obviously didn't do a very good job with me. I'm proud to be a self-taught programmer. I guess the problem was I was stuck on Macintosh computers. I hated them with a passion. It was only beyond schooling that I got a Windows computer. There is a common belief that people are addicted to technology. I wouldn't actually consider myself totally addicted. My proof is, when I'm too cheap to pay for internet access at hotels, I can do without it. I can't be this addicted. Any person with a disability would use technology quite a bit. It's important to balance it out. I really don't get a balance, but I'm not here to follow my own advice. So what activities could a person like me do that doesn't involve technology? Well, I used to play chess. There's also things like horse riding for people with disabilities. Activities like these could be a way to manage technology addiction. I also use a spelling tray. This could be an advantage, so I'm not completely reliant on technology. When I was at school, I relied on teachers' aides. Some people feel that when you have them, the teachers just ignore you. This is, however, not my experience. I think that my biggest complaint was at intermediate. I had someone that constantly talked while she was giving me lunch. Amazing that I was antisocial and grumpy back then. When it came to the work itself, I found that some teachers' aides would borderline do the work for you. That was quite amusing, but also shouldn't happen. You would have thought that this was just due to the predictive nature of my communication, but this was also the experience of one, maybe two other friends that were in high school. So with technology such as eye tracking, are teachers' aides really needed? Yes. I can't see eye tracking working all of the time with the classroom with normal sunlight. It's difficult enough at air points. Maybe if you darken an area of the classroom you may have some success. For me, eye tracking is by far the quickest method of access. Any other method of access is too slow. I also need to use eye tracking in a relaxed environment, otherwise my head moves too much. My spelling tray is the fastest way of communicating, so I will be using this to answer questions. If a technological solution is slow and inefficient, it is probably best not to use it, even if that solution gives you independence. Of course, sometimes you want to be independent, but time-sensitive occasions are really not the correct environment to do this. At home, I had home help. By the end I learned that there was not going to be consequences for me not doing the work, so I did what I can at school, and didn't really bother with homework. Equality of education should have equal consequences, which is very easy to say now that I'm out of the school system. A decade and a half ago I probably wouldn't have the same attitude, but if you don't teach people consequences, they will probably grow up to be entitled. But aren't people with disabilities special? That's what we are constantly told. Special education this, special needs that. It's no wonder I'm so narcissistic. They constantly tell me I'm special. I prefer the word alternative or unique. What people do at home has a lot to do with their educational outcomes, so you need to make sure that their home environment is suitable. Sometimes parents don't know things or don't have enough support. Sometimes they need a support network. Connecting them to other parents, even outside of the school, could be worthwhile. It is also possible that they don't know what their child can achieve as an adult. Show them successful people with disabilities like scientists, comedians, and other people making a difference. As people with disabilities, we have unique therapies to help us. Some therapies overlap. For example, speech therapy helps you communicate, but occupational therapy can help with the computer side. It even helped me when I managed to hack the safeguards on my own computer and managed to screw everything up. I have additional speeches on music and speech language therapies. Go to my YouTube channel for more information. YouTube fan for them. Everything has to be politically correct now. My worldview is we should just satisfy the politically correct brigade, because then they will stop complaining and we can move on to solving actual problems that make a difference. Actually, they will never stop complaining. They will always find something to complain about. So the strategy has to be to minimize complaints. Here's the thing, it's impossible to please everybody in the disability sector. Many people have conflicting opinions. One option is to do what's popular, like integrate people first language. Another option is to just do what your clients want. In your case, the clients would be the students. I say if you're only providing solutions for one student, just do whatever the person feels comfortable with. Now, people first language is putting the person before the disability. Introducing a person as someone with a disability, not a disabled person. I call myself the grumpy cripple. I don't care about language. I do have some pet hates. I'm not going to spend hours and hours on them. I would rather fix other problems than to be the language police. If it came with a uniform, maybe I would change my mind.